Welcome to Nurture Nurture's official Up There guitar lesson. I'm going to teach you guys how to play this song. Probably the most difficult song I've ever written, but like everything with time, you can definitely learn it. The most important part is not playing the song perfectly, it's finding enough time to focus and practice. Let's get started. This is the intro. Don't let it stop you from getting into the rest of the tune. It's basically just a really fast. So we're going to tap on the 14th fret of your D string, 16th fret of your D string, 15th fret of your B string. And then pull off with those fingers as if you're plucking the strings, but you want to pull off. And you're going to pull off to open. So 16th fret, 15th fret, pull off to open. And then you're going to hammer on to this C-type chord. So it's 3 on your A string, 5 on your D string, 4 on your G string. And you're going to do that really, really fast. And then on the last time through, you're going to end on 17th fret of your A string, 16th fret of your G string. So that's the very beginning of the song. Pretty gratuitous and unnecessary, but I was under the impression that songs had to be like incredibly stimulating at the very beginning to get people through the first 5 seconds on Spotify so that we continue listening. And also it's really fun to play. It's not that it's really not that hard, but I can understand why something that's that sounds like that might deter you from wanting to play this song. Next, we are going to do, this is the chorus. So this is going to happen a couple of times. We're going to do the same kind of tapping, pulling off thing up here for the majority of the chorus. So you're going to start with the 17th fret of your A string, 16th fret of your G string, pull off to open, and then hammer on to a triad here, which is just a G major. So 3rd fret of your E string, 5th fret of your D string, 4th fret of your G string. And you're going to keep hammering on this G chord, this major triad up here, while you do the hammer-ons and pull-offs down here. So the pull-offs are 17th fret of your A string, 16th fret of your G string, pull off to open, hammer on to the G triad. The second pull-off chord is 16th fret of your D string, 15th fret of your B string. And then the third pull-off chord is 12th fret of your D string, 12th fret of your B string. And then we're going to hammer on to the 10th fret of your D and the 10th fret of the B. And you're not going to pull off. You're just going to stay on those. And that's kind of the end of that phrase. So it goes. So you're going to play through the 3rd fret of your E string, 2nd fret of your A string, 4th fret of your G string. So it's another G major triad. And then you're going to hammer on to the 19th fret of your D, 19th fret of your B. And then go straight down to the 16th fret of your D string, 15th fret of your B string. Okay, so that's that first kind of thing. All together it goes. So you're going to do it twice, and then we're going to move into the second half of the chorus, which is you're going to play this C chord, so barring the 3rd fret with your index finger, and then playing the 5th fret of your D string with your ring finger, the 4th fret of your G string with your middle finger. We're going to play the whole chord out. I strum with the backs of my fingernails to kind of give it a nice kind of wrap. And then we're going to do the same, tap the 17th fret of your A string, 16th fret of your G string, pull off to open, and then hammer back down onto that C chord. And you're just hammering back onto the triad. You can't hammer on that whole bar, so just hammer onto the 3, 5, 4 up here. And then you're going to hammer onto the 16th fret of your D string and the 15th fret of your B string. And then you can strum again, but I don't. I just use hammer-ons up here, so you're going to hammer onto that triad, the 3, 5, 4, and then use those fingers to pull off and get open notes, and then hammer back onto the triad. And that phrase ends by tapping onto the 17th fret of your A string and the 16th fret of your G string 2 times. And then the second time through that riff, instead of doing it twice, you do it 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then next we're going to play this phrase in 5, which is really similar to the first half of the chorus where you play through this kind of G major triad here. So it's 3rd fret of your E string, 5th fret of your A string, 4th fret of your G string. 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to go into the verse. You're going to go back into the C chord where you've got the 3rd fret barred with your index finger, 5th fret of your D string with your ring finger, 4th fret of your G string with your index finger. And then you're going to play through that chord. So after you hammer onto the 5th fret of your B string with your pinky finger, you're going to tap onto the 10th fret of your B string with your index finger, your tapping hand, slide up to the 12, and then tap the 10th fret of your E string with your middle finger. All right, and I have to pick up my index finger after I've slid it to the 12th fret, so I don't sustain that note. Okay. And then once you've lifted up like this, most of the guitar has been muted, so I lift up my hand and start moving to the next chord, which is this kind of E minor diminished type thing. Okay. So it's 7th fret of your A string, play that with my index finger. 7th fret of your G string, play with my middle finger. 8th fret of your B string, play that with my ring finger. Then you do that riff from the top again, all the way to that E minor chord. And then after the E minor chord, we're going to slide down and we're going to do a B. Same style of chord, B flat, same position kind of thing as your E minor chord. There's the 2nd fret of your A string, I use my index finger to play that. 2nd fret of your G string, I use my middle finger to play that. And 3rd finger of your B string, I use my ring finger to play that. So all together. And then the end of the verse, I consider this kind of like a pre-chorus, even though the song doesn't have a very traditional song structure. You're going to start by strumming up all the way up that C chord that we've been playing this whole time. You're going to go all the way to your high E string this time. And then hammer onto the 5th fret of your high E string. And then tap the 12th fret of your E string with the middle finger of your tapping hand. I do that because it's stronger than my index finger for tapping. And then you're going to have lifted up this pinky that had hammered onto the 5th fret of your E string for that first part. And then pull off to get the G that you're still holding with your bar up here. And then you're going to tap onto the 10th fret of your B string and slide up to the 12th fret before pulling off. And then hammer onto the 5th fret of your B string with your pinky and pull off. And then tap onto the 10th fret of your high E string with your middle finger of your tapping hand. So it's a really long kind of run there. Okay, and then we're gonna do this next thing, which started as kind of like a ripoff of something that Snooze does that I really, really like, but it did kind of become its own thing. And we're gonna be playing, it's that E chord and B chord that we were doing earlier, but we're gonna hammer onto it and then pull off to open strings and then hammer back onto it. So hammer on, pull off, hammer on, and then tap onto the 12th fret of your D string and the 12th fret of your B string with your index finger and middle fingers respectively, okay? And then as you pull off the 12th fret to open, you're gonna hammer on back onto that E minor chord, and the pattern goes. Then we're gonna do the same pattern back on that B chord. And instead of sustaining on the 12, we're gonna move back into the C chord, and we're not gonna do anything fancy this time, we're just gonna play straight through it. And then this is the next part where we kind of move to a D chord for the first time. So we're gonna use the ring finger of our left hand to play the 5th fret of the A string. You're going to use your middle finger to play the 4th fret of your D string, index finger to play the 2nd fret of your G string. We're actually going to hammer onto that in a second. So you start by playing through that 5, 4, and then you hammer on to the 2nd fret of your G string with your index finger and then play the open B. So all together. Hey JF. All right. And you actually play that twice. So Da, da, na, na, na. And then we're gonna go back into the chorus, which you played at the beginning of the song, and it's exactly the same. And instead of going into that G triad where you're going to play through it, we're going to go into the bridge of the song where things are going to get kind of weird. So first we're going to play that E chord we've been playing, that E diminished down here, same shape. Gonna let it ring out. Move down to B. We're doing this weird kind of like 5, like a 9 altogether, like a 9/4. And then we're going to play through 8th notes, and then let that E ring out. And then strum the B diminished. So the beginning of the bridge altogether goes. And then we're going to get into the bridge proper. This part was inspired by Tim Henson of Polyphia, and it's pretty difficult. I'm still practicing it myself, but yeah, it sounds really, really good once you can get it going. So you're gonna use your index finger to hold the 7th fret of your A string, and then you're gonna use your middle finger to hammer on to the 7th fret of your B string when we get there. Tim Henson is the guitarist of Polyphia, and he has a little lesson where he talks about hitting an octave as many times as you can close to one another. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to hit E a bunch of times. So we're going to play the 7 here, and then play the open strings all the way up to your B string, and then hammer onto the 7th fret of your B string, and then play the E string open. And then I don't even actually pluck this, I hammer onto it. And then I play the, so I hammer back onto that 7th fret there, and then play the E string. And then play the open low E and the open high E. So that's the first phrase of the bridge. We're gonna get into kind of like a B minor triad here. So you're gonna play the 2nd fret of your A string and then play open strings up to the B string before hammering on to the 3rd fret of your B string with your middle finger, and then the 4th fret of your G string with your ring finger. And I hammer on those last couple notes, I don't pluck them, because my finger is getting ready to go do a tap up here. So and then we tap the 12th fret up top. So all together. And we're going to do that several times. I can't remember. We changed this right before we finished tracking. I think it's 4 times. And then when we get into the heavier part of the bridge, we lead into it with this part that starts on D. So we play the 4th fret of our A string, 5th fret of our A string, the 4th fret of our D string, open strings up to B, and then hammer on to the 7th fret of your B string with your pinky finger. And then we're gonna play open A, hammer on to the 3rd fret of your A string, 2nd fret of your D string, open strings up to the B string, hammer on to the 3rd fret of your B string with your ring finger, tap 12. So that sounds like this. All right, and then here comes the heavy part of the chorus. So we're gonna hold this chord pretty much the whole time, and we're gonna keep our hand here and move fingers on and off to do hammer-ons and pull-offs, but it's pretty much gonna stay here. So 7th fret of your A string, you're gonna use your middle finger to hold that. 5th fret, it's kind of like a minor 9th chord. 7th fret of your A string, middle finger, index finger plays the 5th fret of your D string. G string is the 7th fret held down by your ring finger, and then your pinky plays the 8th fret of your B string. So starts with a strum. If you get the open E in there, all the better. It makes it a little bit thicker, but I accidentally muted a lot. And then we're gonna strum kind of in short succession, because we're gonna go ba, ba, and then we want to hear that open A. That's the important note to get out there on that 2nd strum. And then we're gonna hammer back onto the 7th fret of the A string with your index finger, and then tap the 12th fret of your D string with your index finger, your tapping hand, 12th fret of the B string with your middle finger, your tapping hand. And then we're gonna pull off to an open B string before hammering back down onto the 8th fret of your B string with your pinky. And then we're gonna do a slide. We're gonna slide from the 12th fret of the 12th fret of your D string all the way up to the 16th fret of your D string. And then we're gonna tap onto the 15th fret of the B string with the middle finger of your tapping hand. And pull off to the 8th fret of this chord that we're still holding up here. Okay. And then we're gonna start pulling off and hammering on with your index finger up as we tap the 16th fret of the D string and the 18th fret of the D string one after the other. So, and it makes more sense if you look at the tab of this part than me kind of explaining it there, but. So that's that first part of the bridge, and then we're gonna go back into the part that introduced the bridge with this D. And then instead of going straight back into that hard part, we're gonna do like a little, which is all on the B string. We're gonna play the 7th fret with the middle finger, 8th fret with your ring finger, and then pull back off to the 7th fret with your middle finger, and then the 5th fret with your index finger before all the way to open. And if you get this G in here, all the better. Okay, so. And then hammer onto the 7th fret of your G string with your middle finger, slide up to the 11th fret, and then play the 10th fret of your E string with your index finger and pull off to 0. So all together, that goes. And then we're just gonna do the bridge as we did it the first time. And then this time to end it, instead of going back to the, we're actually just gonna do a couple more taps. So we're gonna tap the 14th fret of our G string with our index finger, hammer onto the 4th fret of your G string after pulling off to open, and then tap the 12th fret of your G string, pull off to open, hammer onto the 4th fret. And you're gonna do that back and forth a couple times. Okay. And then we're gonna go into the last verse, which is the same as the first verse. All right, and then we're gonna do the chorus one more time, the same way we did it the first time. And this time when you do that last part, the first time we did it in 5, the last time through, you're actually going to play it in 6. So yeah, thanks so much, guys. That is how you play all of Up There. If you have any questions, there's a Discord invite in the description down below, and you guys should definitely join and send me a DM and ask me if there's any parts that are even ambiguous to you even a little bit, and I'd be happy to help you out. I know it's a weird song. It's definitely the hardest song I've ever written for myself to play. Yeah, I hope it sounded good.